Happy Sunday, October 24th, everybody. Best effing dad here. I said I don't do COVID updates on Sundays, but this is really important. So I decided to do one for you today. All right, so the numbers are coming down, whatever, but we're going to plateau. And I know we're going to plateau. Minnesota, Michigan, be careful. Alaska, still hot. Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, that area. All right, you get the idea. But in the news, I want to talk about what's happening in the UK. But real quick, because I know you guys will have a question. CDC approved half-dose boosters for Moderna and J&J this week. And early data is really, really good for 5 to 11-year-olds. Get ready. They're going to be visiting that this week. And so we'll probably be approved for 5 to 11-year-olds around the beginning of November, which is what I've said, right? But what I want to talk, and then I know I'll have some questions about mixing and matching. If you have concerns about myocarditis, especially if you have like a younger son or whatever, or maybe you're at risk, you can take instead of getting a Moderna booster, you can do a J&J booster. That would be fine. I would not do a Johnson J&J booster, but a Pfizer, if you had a Moderna, you're worried about myocarditis, it's great to get a Pfizer. Similar levels of neutralizing antibodies. If you had a Pfizer and you want to try Moderna, that would be fine too, or if that's all they had. If I had a J&J vaccine, if I had one dose of a J&J vaccine, I would get Moderna or Pfizer as a booster, and that's allowed too, so you can do that. But let's move on to what we're going to talk about, what's happening in the UK. Now, for months, I've been telling y'all, because the UK had this Delta surge in July and went up to like 47,000 cases a day, and then everyone started posting, it mysteriously disappeared. And I said, bitches, it didn't mysteriously disappear. UK just went down to like 25, 26, 27,000. And then it didn't go below that. And then it kept creeping up. And remember, I was like, it's at 30,000. It's hanging around 32,000. Like it won't go. It's not going away. Something fishy is happening. Who remembers me talking about this? Well, guess what? Today, UK is back up to 47,000 cases a day. It is at the same level as its peak of the Delta surge back in July. This is very important. You're listening to me. All right. Now, there is something funky happening. And what you're going to hear in the news, you might have heard it, is like there's a new Delta variant. It's a Delta Plus. It's a Delta 2. You know, they'll eventually settle on a name. But it's, last time I checked, which was last week, it was making up about 6% of the cases in the UK. And then I took a COVID break, go back, I looked at numbers today, and I was like, motherfucker, UK is back up to 47,000 cases a day. So I'm curious to see the next time they post about this Delta 2, like how it's a lineage of the Delta. It's a variant that's a lineage of the Delta variant, which originally happened in India. So we know, let me give you a couple things. We always lag UK by 3 to 4 weeks. So what's happening in the UK is going to happen in the United States. So my prediction is we're going to level off around 75,000 cases a day, which is still twice where we were this time last year before the winter surge. And then if UK is going to go back up, we are going to go back up to 200,000 cases a day, again, if not more, depending on what happens. Now, we know that there's a Delta, that the Delta Plus, the Delta 2, is in the United States. They don't talk about it, but it has been identified in at least 6 states, last time I checked last week. So it's probably more, it's probably going to take over. Oh, here he is again, fear-mongering. I've been pretty much fucking right this whole time. I don't know what to tell you. So what we need to do is lovingly encourage people to get vaccinated. It seems to work really well. Still effective against Delta. Probably will be effective against Delta Plus or Delta 2, whatever they're going to call it. So get vaccinated. But I had it last year. I have natural immunity. Stop it. Your immunity goes away. We are starting to understand this more. You have waning antibodies, which you want your antibodies to go away, but people are getting sick again, catching COVID the second time, dying the second time, they've had it, catching it a third time, okay? So get vaccinated is your best chance. I'll take my chances with my natural immunity, and when I get sick, I'll have monoclonal antibodies. I have a friend who refused to get vaccinated, who got COVID, decided she'd done her research, decided that she would be more comfortable at home instead of being admitted, and then is now in the hospital. Their hospital does not have monoclonal antibodies. So even if your goal is to, like, I'm just going to use monoclonal antibodies, you might not have access to monoclonal antibodies because there's going to be a shortage, number one. Number two, remember that monoclonal antibodies are not 100% effective. They are worse than vaccination. And they're only 80% effective in the early stages. So by the time you need oxygen because your O2 sat's like 50% or you have pneumonia, the effectiveness of monoclonal antibodies is way less, maybe 50%. Once you're in the ICU, monoclonal antibodies are not effective at all, period. Like the number, that's awful, does not work. We know that monoclonal antibodies are only effective, only make a difference in the very early pre-hospital stages, all right? So now she's in the hospital yelling at her nurses because they don't have monoclonal antibodies, waiting to get intubated. And I'm just like, this is not good. Now listen, my prayers go out to her and her family, but I share that story because it's gonna get worse. The division that's happened into our country is just unbelievable. Now, the people's thought processes are so bad. It's like, well, if the states are so vaccinated, then why do we have more cases with more vaccinations? See, vaccinations cause like more of these variants, and vaccinations cause more of these cases. I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. Dr. Vuong, when you call people idiots, that doesn't help them, like, convince them. I'm not convincing anybody. They can't be convinced. They're just idiots because they can't do the math. I mean, let's say we get up to 70% vaccinated rate, which we're not at. You know, we're about 60% vaccinated, right? I took a week and a half off, so I don't know the exact numbers. But just do the math. We have roughly 350 million Americans. That means 100 million are still unvaccinated. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of unvaccinated people for this Delta plus Delta 2. So you've been warned. UK numbers are high, which means there's something fishy happening, and we're going to see it again. I have a very dire prediction for this fall surge, winter surge. I'm not looking forward to it. So I might have to be back at doing COVID updates daily again. I don't want to be, but here we are. You know, if I can convince one person to get vaccinated, I will feel like this has been worth it. Dr. Vuong, best effing dad, and I will see you again, unfortunately, probably tomorrow with another update.